If you have a glitch in the Matrix you want to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank ya. This happened about a week ago. I live in a really small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, and everyone keeps an ear for all kinds of gossip. It's pretty much the only entertainment that we get around here. I needed to stop and get gas, so I pulled up to a Casey's on my way home from work. I parked at the pump, got out, and decided that I was going to just put cash on the pump instead of using my card. I had a spare 20 on me from when I needed cash a couple of days prior. I figured I would just spend it, and this was the perfect opportunity. I walked into the store and up to the counter to ask for 20 on 3. When I looked up and saw Danny, a friend of mine from elementary school. It was definitely him, lanky frame, mop of curly hair, same mole on his cheek and everything. He was there standing behind the counter checking customers out, when he looked up and saw me. The two of us met eyes. I stepped up and asked for the gas, and he gave me that patented goofy grin. I said, "Hey, Danny." He laughed and said, "Hey, bro, what's up? It's been a while." We talked for a few moments, just kind of catching up on random things, nothing too crazy. We didn't get too deep since it was just a couple of minutes. But after that, he said something like, "It was good to see you, dude. We should catch up sometime." I pulled out my phone and asked him for his number, and I typed it in and saved him as a contact, very specifically labeling it as Danny. I said my goodbyes and walked out to my car and filled the tank like I was planning. Nothing too crazy. I drove home just thinking about Danny and how long it had been since I'd seen him, and then I started thinking about why I hadn't seen him for so long. And it clicked. Danny was serving 10 or so years for possession with intent and Grand Theft Auto. He had made some really dumb decisions about 3 years prior, and was definitely still behind bars. When that happened, I started thinking about it, and it didn't make sense. There was no way he had served 3 years on a 10-plus year sentence and gotten out, and then got a job at Casey's. When I got home, I called my mom and asked her about Danny, asking if she knew when he went in and if he was out. She laughed and said, "No, he's definitely still in prison. I was talking to his mom yesterday." I guess it's important to note that he was a neighbor, so my mom and his mom were close. My mom also used to work for the sheriff's office, so she typically had information on things happening around town with criminals. I said okay, hung up the phone, and just kind of sat there thinking about it like, how the hell did I see Danny at Casey's if he's still behind bars? The only thing that made sense was that he was let out for whatever reason. I ended up going to the county website, which actually does have an inmate lookup system, and I searched for Danny by name. Much to my surprise, right there in front of my face was Danny's mugshot with the charges and information on his sentence. And under his status it said incarcerated, which meant he was definitely still in prison. It was definitely him, and certainly the same guy. Longer curly red hair, mole on cheek, goofy and kind of lanky looking dude. At that point, I went to look in my phone for the number that I had saved for Danny, and I didn't have any entries that had Danny as the name. To make it even weirder, I did remember the first 3 numbers from his number, 509. So I typed that into my phone to see if I had just maybe misspelled Danny or something like that. When I typed that, I did have an entry for a number that started with 509, but the name was just literally random characters, like a handful of numbers, letters, and special characters. Just a random string of unidentifiable text. It was weird. It was like I had hallucinated the conversation and added a random number to my phone with a random name. I went ahead and deleted it thinking that I was just going crazy. About a week later, I found myself needing to go to Casey's again, and I asked the clerk if someone named Danny worked there. I described him: curly hair, tall dude, lanky figure, etc. She said that no one named Danny worked there and that there weren't any clerks that looked like that working at that location. I said all right, and that I must have been thinking of someone else, and thanked her. So in the end, I have no idea who I had that conversation with at Casey's. I have no idea why I put that number in my phone like a crazy person, and I don't think I'll be able to ask Danny about it for at least 7 more years, since he's definitely still in prison. Hi, Raven. I love listening to your stories. The sound of your voice is soothing, and you really have a gift. Thank you. Listening to many of these stories reminds me that I'm not alone when it comes to all the vivid dreams, out-of-body experiences, weird and paranormal events I have experienced since I was a child. There are so many experiences I've had over the years that I could give you content for months. Please do. I'm just trying to find the time to write them all down. For now, here's an experience that I would love to get some insight on from your listeners, if they've had a similar experience or might have an idea of what's going on in this situation. So, here goes. I live in a New England coastal area. My husband, 3 young adult sons, and I moved to this new home over 4 years ago. It's a fairly new construction. I don't believe there are ghosts or any negative spirits in this home from the previous owners. The house is very bright, light, and airy, and it feels like a calm and positive place to live. Now, before I explain the glitch, I have to give you a little background information. This information will give your listeners some background or insight as to why this glitch, or whatever you want to call it, may have occurred. So, my mom died unexpectedly on July 1st of 2019. This was a real shock, although I had a very vivid dream about her 2 days before she died. I've only shared this dream with 2 other people the morning I woke up: my husband and my sister. The day that my mother died, my husband and I had just arrived at the resort in Bar Harbor, Maine. We were planning a 4th of July vacation at the resort. It was several hours after we arrived at the resort, the first day of our vacation, when my sister called me with the news about my mother. She said, "Do you remember what you told me about that dream you had the other day?" I said that I did. She paused for several moments, and then she told me that my dream had come true. That Mom was actually dead. I was taken aback and got mad and hung up on her, thinking she was playing a mean joke on me. She called back and told me that it was true, and that it wasn't a joke. After the shock and tears, I had to accept that even though it was very upsetting, unexpected, and heartbreaking because I never got to say goodbye, I knew that it wasn't my fault. It was a dream. I never imagined that it would have actually happened. It's not like I have control of my dreams, nor could I have warned her. My husband and I knew that it was going to take a while to arrange the funeral, as many relatives don't live in this country. We would have to give them time to come to the US. Although this was a very difficult time for me, my husband and I stayed for a few days at the resort where I planned the wake, funeral, and repast along with my sister, who lived in the same state as my mom. The day we had the wake, burial, and repast, my cousin Sylvie heard me explaining in English to other English-speaking relatives about a dream that I had 2 days before my mother died. She listened quietly and intently. Sylvie speaks and understands English pretty well. I also recounted my dream again in French to some of the non-English-speaking relatives, and Sylvie was again nearby listening to me share this unusual dream. Both in French and in English, she heard me as I explained that I had a dream 2 days before my mother died. In this dream, I saw my mother walking in a white gown with long white bell sleeves, and a long white veil. She looked youthful, healthy, and beautiful. Her skin was glowing and she had a smile that was beaming with joy. It was a joy that I have never witnessed or experienced before. In this dream, I was able to see the front and back of her at the same time. It was unusual to be able to do this. Her entire being radiated pure light and joy. While she was walking, I was able to follow behind her, but at some point I telepathically knew that I wasn't going to be able to go any further and follow her to wherever she was going. My mom was then greeted by many people in robes. These robed people were lined up on her left side, and she walked towards them. They were jubilant at her arrival. It felt as if she had graduated the school of life. The closer I got, that's when I realized that these robed people were all the ancestors that passed before her. They knew her, and she knew them. They welcomed her with open arms and such love. Sylvie didn't say much to me about this dream at the repast. She was simple, very empathetic, and somber. About a week later, she emailed me. She told me that her mom was an artist like my father. She said what I described in my dream reminded her of a painting that she has in her home that her mother had painted 60 years earlier. She had me recount my dream again to her, and she said that she couldn't believe my dream was describing the painting her mother had painted 60 years ago. Sylvie wanted to give me this painting. She was going to mail the painting, but I told her that I would come to her country and pick up the painting in a few weeks. Several weeks later, I went to visit my cousin in her country, and she gave me the painting. It was shocking. It was exactly what I saw in my dream. It was one of the strangest things to see. My dream was a framed oil painting. I was particularly taken aback because in my dream, on the left side there were painted spirits, while my mom was in a white long bell-sleeved gown with the long white veil trailing behind her. What I didn't observe in my dream that I could clearly see in this painting, on the right side, was the face of my father. He died when I was 4 years old. In the painting, my father was to the right of my mother holding my second oldest sister. She had died of SIDS a couple of years before I was born. It was clearly my father holding an infant. It's important to note that this painting was painted by my father's older sister over 60 years ago, which is well before my parents ever knew each other. This is before my sister, the sister that died of SIDS, my brother, or even I were a thought. My aunt must have painted something that was in her subconscious, and it was exactly what I saw in my dreams 2 days before my mother died. When I came back to the US with the painting that Sylvie's mother painted, I put the painting below a smaller sunset painting that my father had painted 5 years before I was born in my closets. These paintings were not tucked away. They were clearly on display in a very large walk-in closet area. I arranged these two family paintings in a beautiful spot above a seated area in this closet. Now that you have the background, this may help you understand the glitch. So, a couple of weeks ago, I heard something fall down on the second level of the house. I was in another room on the same level of the house at the time that I heard the object fall. I wasn't able to immediately identify what the sound was or where it was coming from, which felt peculiar. A little while later, when I went into my walk-in closet, inside of the master bedroom, I realized what fell was the large rectangular framed painting that was painted by Sylvie's mom, the painting of my dream. These paintings have been displayed in my walk-in closet since we moved to that house. The smaller sunset painting my father painted 5 years before I was born is above the much larger painting that my aunt painted of the dream that I had of my mother. Once I noticed the large painting had fallen from the hook, which is strange in and of itself, because this heavy paint that has this heavy picture frame wire secured on either side of the back of the wood frame would have had to have bounced off a J-shaped hook to fall from the wall. This is virtually impossible. No other objects caused the painting to fall. I quickly tried to rehang it by placing the wire behind the painting onto the picture frame hook that was still securely nailed into the wall. For some reason, as I was trying to place the wire back into the hook, the painting was not resting on the hook properly. Finally, I was able to get the wire onto the J-hook. When I tried to adjust and center the painting beneath the painting my father had painted, the top of the frame of this large painting would overlap the bottom of the framed one that my father made, that was on its own hook, hanging above where the larger painting should be. These two paintings have been hanging in my closet since we moved into this house. The larger painting, the one that my aunt had made, is displayed directly below the smaller horizontal framed painting that my father made. I tried every configuration to get the painting back on the wall without touching the smaller one. The nails with the professional painting hooks were secured intact in the wall for both paintings. No matter how I tried to hang the painting, they would now overlap, as if the nails were moved too close together. This should not be possible, because there are no other holes in the wall other than where the original painting hooks have been installed 4 years ago. I checked the wire on both paintings. Neither were loose or tampered with. I tried hanging it by putting the wire on the nails other than the hook. I tried hanging it by putting the wires behind the nail. I tried squeezing the hook tighter. I even tried putting the larger painting above the smaller one in the event that I hung the larger painting above the other. I tried it even though it didn't make sense, nor would it be aesthetically pleasing. No matter what configuration I tried, or what I did, the two paintings now overlapped. The situation is impossible. They have never overlapped before, so why now? The only thing I can think of is that my mom died on July 1st 5 years ago, and the painting fell off the hook around this date. Maybe my mother wanted to let me know she's around and with my father and sister. I'm honestly not sure what to make of this. I even wonder if this would be considered a glitch. Perhaps it's a ghost, maybe a spirit, or maybe it's something else altogether. Whatever it is, I wonder if someone has an idea of what this could be, or if someone has had this experience before. Hey Raven, been listening for about a month now to your glitch stories, and they help to get me through my shift faster than anything, and I really appreciate that, and your narrative style. Plus, I have years to sift through, so thanks in advance for making work tolerable. Happy to help. Glazing over now to the meat. I have a few glitches that I would like to submit. Some being very short stories, others being maybe long in the tooth. Either way, I hope these are interesting enough, and if anyone has any comments or theories, I would love to read them. The first two I'm sharing are site-based. First one being when I was a child around 11. I was in a small wooded area on my aunt's land at the time, playing tag and such with my cousin and brother. Us being a bunch of dumb boys, we would have staring contests with the sun occasionally, and this was one of those times. Hence, why I would have been looking at the sun after we had our contest. I didn't win. I was trying to look at it to practice, and when I was staring at it by myself, the sun shifted, or teleported. I can't describe it well enough, but it sort of ticked to a different spot while I was staring at it. Like I had blinked, but I hadn't. And yet the sun was just instantly in a new and very different place than it had been not even a second before. It was a noticeable shift in placement, and I looked down and started blinking, trying to make sense of what I had seen, because it didn't make sense. It ticked to a new spot like a clock hand would if you were looking at it, and blink just in time to have the second hand move without you seeing it. It just shifted, and I kept looking up, trying to see if it would happen again. No one else saw it that day, and it's stuck with me since. The next one happened recently, being the end of 2023 or beginning of 2024. My roommate has cats, and we have green food bowls in our hallway for them. Normally, my roommate feeds them, but I help from time to time if she's forgotten or away. And that being said, I was getting up in the morning to use the restroom, and noticed that the cat's bowl was empty. I said to myself, well, it's only 5, and my roommate is still asleep. I'll feed them an hour early and she won't have to, since the cats were asking for food. And then went to the restroom first, knowing they could wait, and I really couldn't. So I did my business and then went to feed them, but when I opened the bathroom door into the hallway, I noticed their bowls were now filled. Like, to the top filled. Like I would. She feeds them less than I do because I'm more susceptible to them pretending that they're starving, even though they're all very well fed. I rubbed my eyes and went to see if she was up, but she wasn't. She was knocked out cold. I checked to see if my brother had fed them, and he was asleep too. So I scratch my head and just kind of sigh at this glitch because it seems like the 2 possibilities happened at once. Then I fed them and went to the restroom in one reality, and in this one I went to the restroom first, but I came out to find it filled as if I had. It bothered me because I remember distinctly seeing the bottom of both of the food bowls, the green in them, with just a few pieces of food, and yet they were filled. So now on to hearing the universe, or my Sims controller, or my handler, a voice in my head that tells me something specific pertaining to a situation, and I benefit in some way. My partner says it may be luck or my future self guiding me in some way, but I don't know what I believe. Of course, I'm not schizophrenic, and no one in my family has any history of it. I don't constantly hear voices. I've just heard one that isn't mine a few times, and these are those times. That being said, I hope it's not graphic. But the first one that happened was while I was living with my girlfriend at the time in 2014. We were cuddling one night, and I heard a voice say, "She's bleeding tomorrow." I immediately looked around confused because it wasn't my voice, and it certainly wasn't hers. So after thoroughly scanning the room for an intruder, I just looked at her and said, "Hey, baby, you're gonna start your period tomorrow." And she laughed at me and said, "I just started my placebo sugar pill today. I won't start for almost a week." I nodded and said okay. Fast forward to the next day, and although I normally walked her to class, her friend picked her up that morning instead, so I slept in. When I awoke, I had a text from her stating, "Hey, I don't know how, but you were right. I started today and I need you to pack some things when you bring my bag to the rec center today." And so I did just that. I packed what she needed and a bunch of chocolates and candy I had bought in preparation for her, and we went about the day. But it's always stuck with me that it happened with her, and she asked me how I knew. I told her the truth, and she believed me, so yeah. And I do wonder how she's doing from time to time. The next one was while I was at home in my room. I was watching TV when I heard, "Play the Egyptian one," from the same voice. I stopped immediately and looked around again, trying to figure out what was happening. Again, no source. So I started wondering what Egyptian game I could play. I couldn't think of any video games at the time, and after a while of pondering, it clicked. It was a casino game I should go to. I talked with my roommates, and we went to the casino that weekend. I hadn't played anything like that, so I wandered around the casino for a bit, until I locked eyes on a game with an Egyptian goddess and a scarab bonus game. It clicked that this was it. I sat down, and on hit 5, I got around $270, so I cashed out. The next time I had the voice was when I was in a town nearby for an unrelated reason to gambling, and yet it still happened. I went to buy a game system to fix and flip, but the repairs were going to offset the cost in parts, so I declined. Also, there was a guy trying to fight the seller while I was looking at the console, and it was a whole thing. It was hilarious. Either way, after declining that purchase, I was heading home when my roommate mentioned a casino we were passing by. I said, I pulled out this money to make money, and I don't know that I would. But then I said yes at the absolute last moment, making the tires screech as we braked and then turned in like it was a movie, we joked. We went to the casino, did the normal sign up, and as we were walking around, I look at a machine and I hear, "Sit." Like, aggressively. So I sat my happy butt down. 1, 2, 3, bonus, $15. Nice. 1, 2, 3, bonus, $60 reduce. Don't mind if I do. Uno, dos, tres, bonus. And then it does another bonus inside of the free spins and spells out from the bottom of a totem pole on the machine. D, then N, A, followed by an R, and then a G. I started shaking. I hadn't won a grand jackpot before. I looked down and the money kept ticking up. Over $1,100 when it was all said and done. I cashed out, found my roommate. We got out immediately and went back to a pawn shop to buy a KitchenAid mixer that I joked about buying if I had won a jackpot at the casino we were just at earlier in the day. Another one is premonition dreams. My most recent was that of my new relationship. I dreamt of them after meeting them briefly. Their ex got mad and threatened us. And it happened just like that in real life, but the one that bothered me the most is I dreamt that Steve Irwin died the night/day that it happened. I dreamt that I was at his park. Never been, I've only seen it in his show. And while he was doing a live performance, a crocodile grabbed him and got him in a death roll. I remember how graphic it was, and how I woke up suddenly with a sigh of relief when my mom walked into my room to get me up and tell me the bad news. The crocodile hunter had died. September 4th, 2006. I was 10. I went to school that day and all I could do was stare out the window of the classroom wondering why I dreamt that. And then it happened. He was a personal hero of mine and still is. I loved the way that he loved nature and wanted to save and preserve it. I haven't had dreams like that before or since with him, the park, or of that level of violence. It was that one day and it's seared into the fold of my brain. An example of quantum immortality that I had, the same as the other slowdown effect, but it was on a trampoline with my brother. We were jumping, as children do, and trying to get as high as possible. I got too close to the edge and went off head first. I had time to look around at everything near me, of course, upside down, and think, damn, this is how I die, breaking my neck at 13 off of a trampoline. And then the temporary black, the opening of my eyes and me being okay, looking around and then just kind of going inside, because I hadn't felt that before or since. The knowledge of a death and the slow motion effect that is associated with it, as well as a short flash of my life up to that point. Maybe it was just adrenaline, but a part of me feels like it's been very different here since 2010. Did I slip into another timeline, or was I just a dumb kid? And then there's the cheat code. So I was on a website I had seen on TikTok around 2019. And it said you could hit random images or type in 2 letters, 4 numbers at the end of the URL for results of leaked screenshots from hackers that just post them. I thought it was fake and hit the random button for a while, before starting to input my initials, or friends or families with their birthday, and nothing of note came up. Just random emails. Then I asked, what if I did the evil path and put in my initials with 6661, as a joke to how I was raised religiously, although I'm unsure of what I am at this point. But when I did, it took me to a screenshot of a crypto recovery password email, and I got curious. I logged into the account not thinking I would be able to, and bam, 120,000 USD in crypto. being Ether, Bitcoin, and tethered in a wallet. The first transaction being my birthday a few years prior. I immediately felt wrong and got scared because that amount of money is no crime. I logged out, deleted the history, and everything I could. I've since forgotten the website for the screenshots and for the wallet gambling thing. It's funny to note, I used that stimulus money for AMC options and set it for a birthday of someone important to me. It sold 2 weeks earlier and would have made $120,000 if I sold when I checked after selling for a $100 profit, after waiting for a year for anything. I'm an idiot paper handing, but it is what it is. Just bugs me that it was the same amount. This was a lot. I'm sorry for rambling, but yeah, these have been my experiences so far. Thank you if you've taken the time to read this, and thank you again if you share these. I appreciate you and everything you do for sharing people's stories of these weird experiences that we're involved in. Even if some are fake, the real posts really do shine through. And when you hear someone else has also experienced what you have, it makes you feel more sane. I had 3 glitches happen to me, 2 in the same year. I want to share them because any time that I've told anyone, they don't believe me. But I know what happened. The first 2 were in my early 20s. It was the late 80s, and I was going through a very rough time, breaking up with a boyfriend, struggling to make ends meet, etc. I remember leaving work and driving down the road listening to the radio. A song came on with lyrics about a woman who was having a difficult time driving to her parents with her child in the back seat, and she gets into an accident. The chorus was, "Jesus, take the wheel." I remember getting very emotional because that is what I was feeling at the time. I just needed someone to help me. I never heard the song again, but thought about it over the years when I was feeling down. Many years later, I hear "Jesus Take the Wheel" by Carrie Underwood, and the memory comes flooding back, and I think, this must be a cover. So I searched the internet to see who wrote the original, and the song did not exist in the 80s. The song was written by Hillary Lindsey, Brett James, and Gordy Sampson, and performed by Carrie Underwood in 2005. I guess the universe just knew that I needed that song at that time. The second glitch happened the same year as the song. My mother passed away when I was a baby, and my dad had given me her wedding ring, which I put on and never took off. One day I went to lunch with a friend, and as we finished lunch and were talking, I took off my ring and was spinning it on the lunch tray, kind of like you would spin a quarter. It was absent-minded, and I'm not sure why I was doing it, as I had never done it before. We finally went back to work. Later that afternoon, I looked down and realized that my ring was gone. I was devastated. I asked my friend if she remembered me putting it back on. She said she recalled me spinning it, but didn't exactly see me put it back on. I called the restaurant to see if anyone turned it in, and they said no. I was even considering going back to dig through the garbage, but thought that that would be like finding a needle in a haystack. I was distraught because this was my mother's ring and I never took it off. It could not be replaced. I resigned myself to the fact that it was gone. I got home later that evening and walked into my bedroom. There, on my dresser, was the ring. The ring that I never take off, and would have no reason to be on my dresser. I was thrilled and grateful. I always thought that my mom returned it to me, and I haven't taken it off since. Okay, the last glitch was a few years later in the early 90s. I was getting gas and standing outside of my car. It was a nice, warm spring day. As I looked up at the sky, everything went pixelated. I didn't know that that was what it was called then, as I hadn't heard of pixels yet. I described it then as a bunch of little colored squares. It was 1, maybe 2 seconds of pixelation, and then it went back to normal. It freaked me out. I hadn't seen anything like that before, or since. It definitely seemed like a video game, but it makes you wonder. Hello, Raven. I've got one for you. Okay, so this is an interactive glitch that hopefully everyone can try out for themselves. My senior yearbook was tragically lost in a house fire with many other sentimental items that cannot be replaced. But once the internet became available to the public, I found a site called Classmates. It's a site that said that they had yearbooks that you could buy to replace your lost ones. I was excited to possibly replace my treasured annual. So I looked up my school and graduation year. Lo and behold, there it was. I was even able to look at each and every page of the yearbook. It brought back so many memories, seeing all the faces and reading all the signatures and things that people wrote in it. Wait, all the signatures and everything everyone wrote in it? When you get your yearbook, it's towards the end of the year, and you have all of your friends and classmates sign it. Then you take it home and nobody ever sees it again, except for you, and maybe your children. That being said, I kind of freaked out seeing all the writing in it. How could that be? There's no way they could have that information. I was, and am, dumbfounded. I've asked several of my friends to try to look up their yearbooks on that site to see if it's the same for them, but they're all afraid of glitches, so I haven't had anyone confirm my glitch. I would be grateful to anyone here who could look up their yearbook on Classmates and let me know what they find out. This has been bothering me for about 10 years, Raven, and if you read my story, thank you very much. So that, my friends, was a collection of some weird, bizarre, strange, awkward, and odd glitch in the Matrix stories. A smaller collection this time around. Smaller in number of stories. Sorry, I'm pulling up my annoying little spreadsheet here so I can count them. Look at the numbers. It takes a while because there's a lot of rows on this one. 5 stories. I should have known that. Anyways, a collection of 5 Glitch in the Matrix stories. One of them a little longer than the rest, but overall good content, great stories, fantastic and weird stuff happening, and I quite enjoyed them. And yes, for those of you curious, I have massive spreadsheets of information on stories that I narrate, with multiple tabs with different pages of information. Stories that I requested and never got approval for, stories that I've requested and did get approval for, which end up on the finished tab. Episodes, which are ones that are all spread out. Ones that I have requests that I consider active because they're less than a month old kind of thing. On the finished tab, I have 4,523 rows. It's a lot of rows. There's a lot of rows. A lot of rolls? That'd be a lot of rolls, too. A lot of dinner rolls. Sorry, I'm going over to the other one. And I have 1,217 stories I requested that never got responses. There's that. Anyways, you guys don't care about my spreadsheets. Only I care about my spreadsheets, because I am a madman. Yeah. Hopefully you all enjoyed this collection of stories. If you did, please do hit that like button. That would be fantastic of you. You can also hit that subscribe button, which helps the channel grow, and I appreciate that tremendously. You can join Patreon or memberships to get early access to content like this, or other things, depending on how you sign up and what you sign up for. You can also do a super thanks, which is a tip to the channel, never expected, always appreciated. If you don't want to listen on YouTube anymore, you can listen over on Audible, Spotify, Apple Podcast, etc., etc., etc. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. Just that's it. So, yeah. The other thing I want to do here is what we do every glitch video that's at the beginning of the week, and that is what we call the word of the week. The word of the week is me giving you guys a word, you guys taking that word, putting it in a sentence in the comments. And then whenever you do that, I take screenshots of those comments and put them at the end of my next beginning of the week glitch video, such as on the screen right now and several moments prior to now. That is the collection of all the people that sent in a comment with the word of the week last week. Thank you to each and every single one of you. You are amazing. You are fantastic. And if you didn't do it, that is okay. I respect the decision not to do a comment. It's up to you. Just know if you do, I appreciate that as well. Yeah. So thank you to every single person who left a comment who is on the screen right now. Like I said, you all are amazing. Let's go ahead and move on to this week's word of the week. Once I open it back up, because I don't remember the definition. Here we go. The word of the week this week is amble. A-M-B-L-E. It's not ample, it's amble. And that is to go at, or as if at, an easy gait, to saunter, or an easy gait / leisurely walk, just a slow-paced walk. Yeah. So use amble in a sentence, put it in the comments. I'll put you on the screen next week. If you get it in before that video is done, of course. Well, that's it, friends. Hope you're having a beautiful week so far. Hope I do see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, that you are valid, that you are important, and that I appreciate you. You are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until I see you again, my friends, much love, and sleep well.